So into the charts we go here, and you can see that Bitcoin basically had a pause day on this Thursday. We've just started the Friday candle right here, and again, a little bit of a down tick. Now, in all fairness, you've had two very nice bounce days coming off a classic double bottom. And again, remember what I said yesterday, double bottoms where there's very little time between the 2 points, you will get bounces generally, but the bounces are not significant. It's not a significant support level. All right, doesn't mean we can't trade a little bit higher, but in general, it's not like, holy cow, look at that double bottom, we should really rip higher here. That's not the case here. It's like, okay, there's a short-term bounce because obviously we're testing this low right here, and therefore you get this little bit of a snapback. In addition, we still want to kind of watch this general trend line here. You could make a case that we got briefly above it just on the close of that candle, but if you look closely, we're already starting to downtick. Plus, there's really been no confirmation there of any sort as well. Okay, so again, just something to keep an eye on there. Again, is it possible that we could see a little bit of near-term upside on Bitcoin? Yeah, there still is that possibility. I'm really liking the bounces in Solana, Avalanche, BNB's had a really nice move recently as well. Near NEAR, which we have a position in as well, has had a really nice bounce. But again, to me, this is a market where there's going to be more shoes to drop. It's kind of been this quiet period over the last, few days to a week or so, which has kind of kept the crypto market from really dumping out again. But even if we don't get, another big shoe to drop, and I think honestly FTX is probably the biggest one, there's going to be additional smaller bankruptcies. But my big concern overall is that you basically have a scenario where there's going to be forced liquidations of assets, and those assets are going to include ETH and Bitcoin and so forth. In fact, I remember reading that the government owned 150,000 Bitcoin. They might dump that at any point. So there's lots of situations where we could see additional pressure on crypto, even if we don't get another big bankruptcy or big kind of surprise in the overall market. All right, so again, really this just goes along with everything we've been talking about. We've been talking about, again, how ultimately Bitcoin needs to see that 12 to 13,000 marker, which again, if we go back on the chart, you have this pivot high right here in the 13,000 range to 14, and then obviously this separate little sideways choppy area, which is right around 12,000. That's really where I get my 12 to 13,000 target from in terms of first stop. Now, as I've said before, to me, the alignment is too good to not pay attention to. I look for key historical consistencies. We've talked about, the past with Lehman Brothers. I've even done now some comparisons with Enron and WorldCom. How long did it take following Enron for the markets to bottom, and then WorldCom? So again, there's lots of similarities in history, and we're talking actually pretty recent history, really in the last 20 years, where you had these big kind of frauds or bankruptcies that shook markets, and then the question is, how long did it take for it to kind of cycle through? And when I use the word cycle, I'm using it on purpose, right? It's a cycle. It's cycling through all that garbage and getting it cleaned out before the market can firm and start to go higher. In this case, listen, after Lehman Brothers, about 6-8 months later, you got Dodd-Frank, which was the financial bill, which kind of said, hey, listen, we're not going to let the financial firms, the Bank of Americas, the JP Morgans, these big hedge funds, we're not going to let them take crazy risks because they can crash the economy. In this scenario, it's going to be more like, okay, listen, a lot of big money was lost in FTX, Terra Lunis. Lots of retail money got crushed here as well. We're going to put up these fences to make transparency much clearer and these regulations in the crypto markets to kind of stem the fraud and kind of shadiness that's going on there, the leverage and so forth. So, it's all connected. This is how humans perform, unfortunately, in many cases, but at the same time, then it brings on regulation. You can look through history, by the way, you can go back a lot further. You can go back to the 1920s, by the way. The Roaring Twenties were very much similar to the craziness in the crypto market, the speculation that was going on, the leverage that was going on. And then you saw bankruptcies. And then from the 20s into the 30s, you know what you saw? You saw a ton of government regulation come in, which then cleaned up the stock market very similarly. And obviously we know what the stock market's done since the 30s. It's had an amazing, insane run to the upside, obviously over 90 years or whatever, but still. All right, so that's where we are right now. Let's take a look at ETH. And again, ETH basically three nice little updates here. and you can see 1, 2, 3. Notice you came right into this kind of pivot low, pivot low, pivot low here, and then that's the high right there. So it makes sense that you're going to run out of steam, little small 3-bar surge, and then a pause day here. We'll see if we kind of stall. What I would be looking for here is a bull flag, right? Can we get a bullish consolidation sideways move for a couple days, maybe a small decline, and then start to push up here? Needless to say, these lows are going to be a lot of resistance around 1270, 1260, but if you can get through that, I mean, could you potentially test this downsloping line on ETH? Yeah. Again, it's only at 1,400 right now. It's not that big of a move up considering we're at 1,200. But in the crypto market, that would actually be a pretty big move these days, right? We're not used to having big up moves in crypto. It's more like big down moves. So again, keep an eye on that. I'd want to see this pivot low hold here around 1075. If that doesn't hold, then honestly, you're going to head back to this, 875, 885 pivot low right here. Let's look at near NEAR. A little bit of a pullback continuing back to 161 and change. Again, we topped out around 173 here in the last night overnight. And again, we're just kind of creeping back down here. But again, my guess is this is a good bottoming tail. You should get a little bit of a pullback and then one more push up. And again, I likely would sell into that push up if we get up to that range. I'm kind of angling for something in the realm of maybe 175, 180. You can see this pivot low right here, which was a previous little bottoming tail. That one did not play out, as you can see, and we fell. But generally, that low is now going to be resistance, which is around 180. But if you look here, look at this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you bottom on basically the seventh pivot into the bounce. And again, that's what we would call that time count. It's a beautiful little example right there. Very, very important to kind of take recognition of if you're into the technicals and the time counts, which again are game-changing type things. All right, let's take a look at a couple of these other ones here. So let's go to... let's take a look at Solana. Solana, again, pulling back a little bit. Notice, again, this little high here. That was the high basically in the last 24 hours here. We've started the new candle. We're having a small pullback in crypto here. But again, overall, this is a great move on. I love seeing this type of move on Solana because, again, so many people talking about it like it's done, it's over, it's going to zero. I don't necessarily believe that. Granted, I have 4.5% of my portfolio, so obviously I'm not overloaded. Because we just don't take risks like that on anything that could, anything that can drop from $38 to $11, you have to be careful, right? But nonetheless, I'm in the camp that I think that this could rise. I'd love to see a bull flag put in and then a bigger move up towards 18. And if you get through 18, you're headed back towards the $20 range. So pretty cool to see that. Again, the question that I have is it going to form this bull flag pattern? We won't know yet, right? This would be considered an immature pattern, and we just want to watch it. If it goes sideways for a few more days, that would be very bullish for the chart. What wouldn't be bullish, and in fact bearish, is if within a couple days we're back down to these lows down here. You don't want to see that happen for Solana's price. Avalanche, much the same. Avalanche had an amazing move off the low here from about $11.50 all the way up to 13 and change. Then it has pulled back a little bit. Same thing. Can we kind of go sideways here, make a bullish pattern, and then break up to the next resistance around 14, and then maybe get to 1540 or so right in that patch. So bottom line is, I think a lot of the charts will be revealed over the next couple days. Again, the U.S. stock market on Friday, we're coming into Friday, it will be open for a half day, so you'll get a little bit of action there, but in general, usually the Friday after Thanksgiving here in the U.S. is very, very light volume, as most of the big money is sitting on the sidelines. Why is that influential to Twitter? Well, basically, not Twitter, to crypto. That's funny. But basically, it's influential because we know the stock market does influence. So if you have the stock market rally on a light Friday, maybe crypto actually, at least holds steady, if not inches up just a little bit. Let's take a look at Cardano real quick here, see what we got on that front. Cardano, same thing, nice little reversal off this support. We knew this was going to be support. That's why I added right there to the position. Now you're making the beginnings of what we would consider an immature bull pattern. Again, immature doesn't mean much, right? Immature is exactly as it sounds. It's not fully formed, therefore the probabilities of a move up are minimal. If it continues sideways to lower for a few days, very shallow pullback, then probability starts shooting up that you're going to get another up move. So we'll watch for that as well. Now, I do want to look at a couple other charts, guys. Usually we look at Polygon. We can look at that real quick, but I'm going to actually go over a few others today. We'll go over, Litecoins, by the way, had an amazing move. We'll talk about that in a second. But here's your move. Polygon did have a pop-up. Now it's pulling back. Again, for me, the only way I'm getting involved in Polygon is if it flushes out to this level here. I think it will at some point. The question is when. But that would be my big level on that. Now, Litecoin's kind of amazing because it usually tracks Bitcoin pretty well. But what I have to point out here is just so cool, right? So you have a trend line here, right? Pivot, 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 and then touched right here. And then look at how we broke out right here, bull flag. And by the way, time count as well. I mean, time count's just everywhere once you start learning that. But then you got this big pop, and then look at what happened. You fell, falling, 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 and where did you go? Look at this. Remember this downsloping trend line, which you broke out of and confirmed above? Look at where you went back to. What we know is that's called the scene of the crime, and that is going to be epic support, and certainly look at what happened. Price went up. I wish I had looked at this chart, honestly, when it pulled back into that, because that was a no-brainer buy. I tend not to look at Litecoin as much because a lot of times it just tracks Bitcoin. In this case, it's diverged from Bitcoin and is actually performing amazingly well, really amazingly well. As we can see, I mean, look at this move. From this low at 47 bucks, it got as high as 84. I mean, that's an incredible move in an otherwise pretty nasty crypto market. So all the kudos to Litecoin out there. I'm going to keep a closer eye on it, obviously, now that it's showing us it's kind of differentiating itself a little from Bitcoin. But yeah, pretty cool stuff there. Let's look at Uniswap here. See what we have on that chart. So again, you can see the hit here. It kind of kissed right here. We're kind of curling back over. Again, this trend line, this wedge pattern here, that's your support down here. If it breaks here. Right now, I'm not seeing much on that chart at this point in time that would get me interested. Let's take a look at Chainlink. Chainlink had a good bounce. I mean, it was really looking nastier and nastier. But the one thing I will say, take a look at this. So we can remove this line because I want to show you something else. In fact, let's remove all this crap here. So basically, you look at this and you're like, oh, that was such a nasty sell-off. It looked like it was breaking down and then had a big pop back. Why did it do that? Well, let's put a trend line in. Take the low from June, right? So the low from June and these lows right down here, and what do you get? Basically put a line through there, and you basically hadn't even taken out this low here, kind of kissing double bottom, kissing this pivot low. And one of the key metrics of education that I love to kind of impress upon you guys is that when you have a level here that gets hit here and here, after it hits this time and this line is actually very, very weak right over here. So if it hit it again or again, it would have probably broken down. What happens is the price went away from the line and didn't touch it again for literally months, right? We're talking about the last time it hit this line was in mid-June. So now you're talking about when it came down in mid-November. Think about how much time is gone on between all this time. And what happens is when you go away from a level that was support, that was getting banged on, and it was getting weaker and weaker and weaker, but then you go away from it for a long period of time, that line becomes strong again. Time heals. All right, we think about the human body. Does time heal? Yes, it does. So the same kind of thing with trend lines. You go away and you don't retest it. So this line, as time wages on, stronger, really, 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 really strong, and it comes down and boom, it pops off that level again. Now, if it comes down again and again and again in short succession, this line weakens, eventually breaks. But again, if this were to go away here, and let's say we go up for, I don't know, let's say another 6 months, and then we go down there again, you'd expect another bounce. Do you guys see what I'm saying here? Again, these are nuggets of unbelievable information here that, again, literally will change the way you trade when you start to understand how strong is a technical support or resistance going to be, and you start looking at it in terms of how many times has it hit, how quickly in succession, what are you seeing in that scenario? So very cool stuff there. And again, glad I can impress upon you guys some of this information that I revealed, just a minor, tiny amount from the Winning Trader series. Quant's not doing anything there. Near, again, we talked about that one. Filecoin, I'm not going to look at that today. So I think that's really, we can look at Algo. I haven't looked at Algo in a while, see if there's anything there. That chart actually does not look good. All right, doesn't mean it can't rally, but here's your June lows, and you're actually trading below. And look at the amount of bounce that you've gotten, very minimal bounce, while the rest of crypto has actually had a pretty successful bounce. What's kind of crazy is this was actually having a really good run before FTX, and then it's coming hard. I don't know if I take that as a warning signal. I'm not really sure, but certainly the chart itself is not a great chart right now. All right, guys. I think that's all for today. I will get you guys another video tomorrow. As always, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. Have a good one. Take care.